I've had Maschine Plus since November, and I gotta say, I've barely taken the thing out of the studio. Well, the weather kind of had a big factor with that, and plus we're kind of locked down, so we're not allowed to go anywhere. Anyways, really excited to get this thing out of the studio, start playing with it outside. And one of the main problems with getting it outside is that it doesn't have a battery. And so I have a solution for you. So check this out.
Only cost me like 600 bucks, and I probably get like a full 6 hours to a tank of gas.
All right, I didn't actually buy that for this video, but I could see myself doing something ridiculous like that. But I did buy this little Halo bolt, and this thing is just a battery-powered source of AC power. I bought it off Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description, but make sure you use it at your own risk. But I will say I've had it for a while now, and it is fantastic. I did a test yesterday, and I left a Crate Cuts project playing for about 6 hours. That's about what I got out of one full charge on this thing. And it costs about $100. So any kind of AC power supply would work. There's also people using these much cheaper power banks, and if you go to the Maschine forum, you'll find people having a discussion about those. So besides the battery, what I want to talk about today is just a few Maschine Plus kind of tips, and then I am going to show you how to do some pitch shifting and time stretching specific to the Maschine Plus. So this is kind of piggybacking off of my video a couple weeks ago where I went through intense pitch shifting and time stretch sort of tutorial on Maschine. So just a couple little Maschine Plus specific things to tag onto that. So make sure you watch that other video first. Next thing we need to talk about here then is Kontakt Patches inside Maschine Plus. Kontakt comes with Maschine Plus. We're aware of that. It's got some of the factory sort of presets on there. But somehow I missed the fact that if you go and drop in Kontakt Patches into the user folder of Maschine Plus, they will show up in Maschine Plus when you're not hooked up to the computer. So this means I can now do some sampling into Kontakt and then open those on Maschine Plus. So Lupop pointed out some really great piano samples, and I went and downloaded a bunch of free piano samples from this place called Piano Book, and it's made by Christian Henson, who does a lot of stuff for Spitfire, and he is just awesome. You got to watch his videos, subscribe to his channel, all that kind of stuff. He's always got great advice and just seems like a really great guy, and has a whole bunch of free instruments. There's hundreds of these free instruments and a community kind of thing that he's got set up. You can go download these patches. So I chucked a few of them onto my card here, go to the browser, go to user, and then I'm going to go to instruments. And there I see Kontakt shows up. And I did have to press Shift and rescan once I put them onto my SD card. So you're going to drag them into the user folder of your SD card, drop them in there, and then put your card back into Maschine Plus, fire it up, and then hold Shift and press rescan. And then that will hopefully get these patches to show up for you. We can see right now that I've got a bunch of patches. I'm just going to show you this claustrophobic piano that Christian Henson made himself. And there it is. And it sounds great. Let's put it on a minor scale. I'm pretty sure I can hear velocity layers in there. So if that's the case, this is going to be huge for Maschine Plus users who just want to make Kontakt patches, load them on the Maschine Plus, and have great sounds on the go. All right, so that's Piano Book. That's loading Kontakt Patches onto Maschine Plus. So besides Kontakt Patches, what I also wanted to show you today is a little thing made by my good friend Blezz Beats. So another YouTuber, we've become friends over YouTube. I'll also show you a little thing that he's made for Maschine Plus and for Maschine, and it's called Miniskool. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And all he's done is he and another guy have set up some massive patches for Maschine Plus with some really nice layout of the controls of massive It also comes with a whole bunch of patches. So if anything, just going to get the patches and supporting the guy, it's $10, totally worth it. I'll just show you what those look like. I'll also point you to a video that he made walking you through the setup and also the patches themselves. So once you load them up, they'll show up under sounds, under user as well in the browser. And then here we can see the patches. So I will have to censor these because he does have colorful language every once in a while. And so not exactly safe for kids, if you know what I'm saying. Once you load up these patches, they're gonna show up under your user here. And all I have to do is click on one and load it up. Go to keyboard mode. And then here, if I go over to plugin and sound, we can see the settings that he's got laid out. Just 7 pages with all of the really basic stuff that you'd want to see on a synthesizer. So we've got oscillator controls, first, second oscillator, the sub oscillator, noise, filters, amplitude, envelopes, vibrato, and some modulation stuff, as well as chorus and reverb and EQ. So really nicely laid out, very simple. And besides all of these great sounding patches on here, he's also given us some init patches. So if we go over to the init patches here, we can just load up a very simple polysynth. And then we can go over to our sound and we can start from scratch. Definitely worth $10 and definitely worth supporting somebody who gives a lot to the Maschine community, that's for sure. So that is Miniskool. And the last thing I want to show you is just some very important sample editing, pitch shifting, time stretching techniques on the Maschine Plus. So I'm going to load up a different project. Okay, so what I've got here is just a very simple start of a project. And I started with a sound from Miniskool. So I was using the Love Pod. Really nice Juno sounding synthesizer there. And then I went over to Crate Cuts, loaded up a really nice little kit here. And this was called the Circles Kit. And then what I did is I deleted all of the sounds that I'm not using because, as I've shown before, a lot of these expansions have tons of effects on each of the individual sounds. So I just got rid of the ones that I wasn't using, and it took my CPU way down from like 45% down to like 15%. Just a very simple beat in there with way too much reverb. Let's turn that down. That's probably better. So the next thing I did is I went and found a guitar sample. So I'm going to start from scratch with that. I'll leave those ones muted for now. And I wanted to show you what you could do to take a sample that doesn't have the proper loop length, so maybe it's not exactly a bar or exactly 2 bars, and be able to manipulate that in the sampler, but also be able to treat it with the proper time with your project and then the proper key of your project as well. And if you've ever tried to do that on Maschine, you'll know that that's kind of difficult. So there's ways around that, and that's what that whole video that I made just the other day was about. But somebody in the comments said, how do you do drag and drop? Because in Maschine software, you can click this little wave icon and then drop your audio module that you've messed around with and change the pitch and change the tempo. And you can drag that and bounce that chunk of audio to a new sound. And then when you turn it into a sampler, you're going to keep all of the pitch and time changes appropriate with that. We can't do drag and drop in Maschine Plus. So how do we get around that? Well, we can do this on Maschine as well. All we have to do is record the output of that sound onto a new sound, and then that's going to be a sample with the new tempo, the new pitch baked into it. So let me show you how to do that. I'll also show you how we can do some of the other little techniques where I showed you where we were lining up a sample that has some transients on it, some rhythmic transients, and get them lined up to the actual appropriate tempo of our project. So our project right now is at 67 or so beats per minute. I'm going to go find this sample, and I found a nice sample here for this example. I'm going to go to, I think it was Faded Reels. So I'm going to go to One Shots. So really nice. I'm going to load that one up. Right off the bat, I can tell that this is not in the key of my song. So my song is in D minor, this is in C minor. And if you didn't know that, if it didn't say C minor, you'd have to figure that kind of stuff out. You might want to just take the pitch and just keep playing with it until it fits. You know, that's one way to do it. There's only 12 notes to choose from. It's not in the right key, I need to fix that, and the tempo's wrong. So if I solo just this one right here and put the metronome on, you can hear that the tempo is way off. So totally different tempo. We don't know what the tempo is. And not only that, this isn't exactly 1 or 2 bars long. So if I go over to sampling, I'm going to see that sample. And the first thing that you have to do, if it's not done already, is get rid of any sound at the very beginning or any space at the very beginning of your sample. So you zoom way in and then get rid of that tiny little bit of silence at the beginning of your sound. I could go and do that right here. I'm just going to go to cut and I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to get rid of that little bit of sound. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is probably also use the selection range, and do a tiny fade in so that I don't get any clicks at the beginning. So a little tiny fade in, can barely see it. Now this sampler here starts exactly at the beginning. I'm going to switch this to the audio module now because the audio module is really great at changing pitch and changing time independent of each other. The sampler, we've got to do a little bit more work, and we don't even know what the tempo of this little loop is at. We haven't even got it at the right tempo. So instead of just trying, you know, sort of shooting in the dark here, shot in the dark, anyone? No? We're going to use the audio module to help us find that kind of stuff out. All right, so I'm going to click the 4D encoder, change this to an audio module. Next thing I'm going to do is set the engine to stretch. That'll allow us to change the pitch and the tempo independent of each other. And you could try either stretch or format. You can watch my other video for, you know, a demo of that kind of stuff. And we're just going to leave it on the rest of these settings the way they are. So first off, I know that I want this to be in D minor. So I'm going to change the tune. There we go. But I also now have the problem that my tempo is wrong. So the problem right now is it thinks that this thing is 8 beats long, and it's not. It's something else. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to set my pattern, and I'm going to make sure my pattern length is only 1 bar, because I only want this one little bar of this loop. If you listen to it. So I want 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's just dead space after. I only want 1 bar of it. But we need to get that to the right tempo of our project. So what we're going to do is we're going to mess with the length, and by doing that, eventually we're going to get this thing to line up with the beats of our song. So I press play, and it's just going to keep looping 1 bar of this little audio module, and as I change the length, you're going to hear the tempo change. Totally off. Too far. Pretty close, but you can hear that gap at the end of it, and it's just not lining up. So if I hold shift, I can now do fine tuning on this length. Still a bit of a gap at the end. Really close. And that feels perfect to me right there. So what we've just done is we've slowed down this loop and we've made it fit to the tempo of our song. We didn't change the tempo of our song during that process. We've got our pitch, we've got our tempo all set perfectly. The next thing we need to do now is if we want to use this in a sampler sort of way, like with the audio module, it kind of just plays in the background, which might be enough for you. You might be done right now, and you could just let this play with your project. But what I want to do is I want to be able to slice this up and then use it in different ways using the sampler module. And the sampler module is really great for when you want to trigger something over and over again or trigger just little bits of something. But the problem is, if you ever change something from an audio module to the sampler module, you're going to lose the pitch shifting and the time stretching that you've just done in this audio module. But what we're going to do is we're going to record the output of this audio module onto a new sound. It's basically like dragging and dropping the audio. I click on sound 2 right here. I go over to sampling, and I'm going to make sure my input is set to internal. And then I'm going to set it to take the audio from group F1, which is this group right here, which has my sound on it. If I press play, that's what's going to get recorded onto sound slot 2. So I press start, or I'm going to make sure I'm on sync. I only want this to be 1 bar long. I press start, and then I restart. It doesn't even matter if the metronome's on. And that's it. So it's recorded it, drag and drop. It takes about exactly the same amount of time. Of course, if it was a few bars long, it would take a little bit longer, but we really don't need the drag and drop feature in Maschine Plus, and this would work in Maschine as well if you had some kind of issues with that drag and drop thing. Anyways, we've now recorded our loop at a new tempo and a new pitch onto sound 2. And then we've got sound 1, which is our audio module. So let's go look at this for a sec. I'm going to click over here. This one right now is an audio module. This one is a sampler, like it's ready to go. So watch what happens. So the right tempo, the right pitch. Watch what happens if I were to just change that audio module into a sampler. This is what would have happened without bouncing it. Click on 4D encoder, click sampler, listen to it now. We've lost our tempo change, so it's faster, and it sounds like it's in the right key, but really what it's doing is if I go to our page 2 right here, we can see that it's just moved the pitch up 2 semitones. And remember, every time you do that in here, it gets faster. So the sampler module is not the thing we want to use for pitch shifting because it's going to take the tempo with it. That's why we want to use the audio module to do all that other stuff. So now what does this mean? Well, I'm going to mute slot 1 right there, go to my sampler, and then here I can go to sampling, I can go to slice, I can go to detect, and I'm going to go detect so that I get all of these little slices. But I want that first note in there right as well. So I'm going to keep going until it gets that one as well. There we go. And then I've got a couple little extra bits in there. That's no problem. I'm just going to, instead of doing this manually, I'm just going to use Maschine's detection method and then just get rid of the ones I don't need, like that one. So this one I don't need. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. Don't need that one or that one. So now you hear I can play around with this sample and it's been cut up at the appropriate tempo to our current project, and it's also at the right pitch. So that's the magic of the audio module and then the magic of the sampler as well. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna apply this to a new group just so we can keep things separate. And so I put that all onto group G. I'm going to mute group F for now. And then let's just have a listen to this. Oh, forgot one thing. Tempo is totally wrong. Listen to that. So I'm going to undo that till we get right back to this state. And I'm going to go to page 3 right here. And I can see this adjust. It thinks it's at 133.9. We just want to set that to 67. And then now we're going to hit apply, put that to our new group, hit OK. And then let's listen to. And we can hear a little bit of gaps in there because what it's actually done is it's pushed things over because I've got the swing set to 39%. So the swing is already at 39%. So these events that were put down on the track you know, according to where they were originally, are now getting swung a little bit, which is actually pretty cool because my beat is swung. So let's just have a listen to this. So there it is. Why was that so valuable, especially in this case? Well, also because that acoustic guitar thing was straight. And by slicing this up after I changed the pitch and everything and the time, it actually set the shuffle or the swing appropriate to my song. So now it sounds like that guitar is kind of swinging on that, you know? I could also go in and just play this. Finding ways to do everything that we can do on the computer away from the computer. And I just got to say, every time I fire up Maschine Plus away from that computer, something happens. And I really think it's just getting out of the same place that I'm creating stuff in all the time. Don't get me wrong, I love my space, but there's something neat that happens when you get away just for a little while, some kind of reset. So thanks for watching. I'll put a whole bunch of links in the description, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell. We'll see you in the next video.